Seth Gross. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm fired up.
Very excited, man. I love the Wisconsin staff. And I think before we get into your story, first bit of news is that you registered for 65 kgs at the U.S. Senior Nationals. Is this your first time at 65?
So I've wrestled I wrestled the Bill Farrell about a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago at 65. And then I wrestled back when COVID and all those super cards and all that. I wrestled two matches at 65. So I've wrestled it, but I wasn't really a 65 kilo guy at the time. But this time, since World Trials last year, I've really committed to just getting bigger, getting stronger, and being a full 65 kilo guy, because I wasn't going back down to 57. I did that last Olympic cycling. It crushed me a little bit, and I don't think I got a lot better at wrestling during that period of time. So I made the decision to go up, and have my guy Reader by my side. But I've been lifting 5 days a week since then, pretty much, and we've been really doing it the right way. We go get DEXA scans every couple months, and just been building up that lean muscle. So I'm where I want to be now for that 65 kilo run, and I'm looking forward to getting back out there.
What's a DEXA scan?
So it's pretty cool. It just scans your entire body. You lay down on this thing, it 10-minute scans your body, and it tells you how much lean muscle you have, how much bone mass you have, how much fat you have, and it goes as far as to tell you we do it every couple months, and it'll be like you gained X amount of muscle in your arms, your legs, your stomach area, or you gained a little fat here. And so it's a great way of just kind of always making sure you're on the right track and adjusting as you go. And so that's the cool thing about it, right? We got on this weightlifting schedule, and I was putting a lot of weight on in my upper body, but not a ton of my legs. So it was like, all right, we're going to adjust. We're going to do a lot more legs. All right, you put a lot of weight on your legs. That's good. Now let's keep kind of doing full body stuff. And so it's an easy way to tweak and make sure you're getting exactly what you want to. So I've been pretty consistent with just continuing to get those. And it's just a very powerful tool to, when you're trying to put on weight, to be able to see, am I actually gaining the right type of weight, or I'm just getting fatter, so it's been good and very helpful.
Bro, I don't want to see the DEXA scan on my love handles, bro. It doesn't matter how much I run, anything. It's just these things won't go away.
Hey, I'm with you. That's the first place when I put on any sort of weight, right to the hips. I'm like, man, why can't it be somewhere a little better? But
so is Reader still getting after it in the gym?
Oh my goodness, this dude's an animal. He is falling in love with lifting. So this dude could lift 50 times a week if he could. So he's been doing kind of the same thing. And this guy's put on like 12 pounds of lean muscle over the last period since we kind of started. And yeah, he's an animal. He ain't slowing down anytime soon. He's figuring, I think he's got to be the strongest he's ever been.
Wow. I mean, that picture of him when he won the NCAAs, like that's one of the most epic pictures of all time. And he's so jacked already. I mean, I can only imagine. So what kind of workouts you guys
cut you off, but get this. I think I want to say he won at 165, right? The year he won, or was it 174?
Might have gone up to 74.
Yeah, then you went up to 74, but on his last DEXA, he had 173 pounds of lean muscle. So he basically has the amount of lean muscle for the weight class he wrestled, if that tells you how much strength this guy's put on. So he's absolutely crushing it.
That's amazing. What workouts are you guys doing?
We got a great strength and conditioning guy here, and so it's really focused on just one. Now it's a little different as I'm getting closer. I'm on a different plan than Reader is now, and then I'll get back on it after. But when we were really putting on size and strength, you really just focus on one area a day, right? We did multiple, usually 2 times a week of legs, but then you got chest days, back day, and then on top of that, our guy's really big on mobility. So we start each day with a big mobility workout, get into the grunts of the lift. And so it's pretty much, you do one focus area, and then it gives you a whole week to recover till you hit that focus area again. So it's pretty good.
That's got to be so much better than sucking down to 125 and a half.
Oh, I can eat what I want. I feel good. I got good energy. And yeah, no, I when I went down to 57 kilos, I don't think I remember like the whole year before, like making that weight, just because I was like I feel like I was a ghost like during that time, a little skeleton walking around. Like it's crazy. You don't realize either. Like looking back at pictures during the time, it's like, dude, that is not healthy. Like what was wrong with you?
What were you eating?
Oh, I was not eating hardly anything. Like, and that's one thing too. Like, so this DEXA place I also do, it's called the arresting metabolic rate. And I think I killed my metabolism when I went down to 57 kilos, because when I got on that RMR, the resting metabolic rate, my body was only burning 1,100 calories a day of just like, if I just sat here, I'd only burn 1,100 calories a day, which is extremely low. And so I've also been trying to build that up a lot. And over the past 4 or 5 months, I've gotten that up to 1,600, which is still right. I'm hoping to get it closer to 1,800, 2,000, but it's crazy to see like what other impacts, like you don't really notice what weight cutting really does to you. There's so many different little things that, right, it's hurting in the long run, right? The 1,100 resting metabolic rate is terrible. And so that's been another big thing of it. But yeah, it's crazy. You look at the data and you're like, man, never doing that again.
Well, it's good to hear you're up at 65. How many weeks until the tournament?
I think so. 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think. Or no, I'm different day. I'm a 16 and 17, whatever that is. Yeah, so maybe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow.
2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
And what, top 6 go to Olympic trials?
Top 5, and I'm already qualified for the trials, but I just want to get some matches in at 65 kilo, and we'll see. I'll hopefully pick up some international stuff in January, February time, and get overseas for a couple. But yeah, just trying to get that experience now at the weight class and see how I feel and see what adjustments I got to make.
Especially since you have that taste of the world team. I got to imagine, like, once you make Team USA and you're at the World Championships, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, oh, it was amazing, and that experience of making the team and being around David Taylor, Jordan Burroughs, Kyle Dake, all these guys who are winning at the highest level, and seeing how they go about their business, like it kind of re-inspired and relit a fire in me to, you're capable of doing that too. And so it was cool being on that team, and right, fell short in that medal match, but I think I'm even better set for the 65 kilo weight class. So I'm excited, and yeah, I mean, world team was sweet, but Olympic team would be even cooler. So.
Man, and at a proper Olympics too, right? Tokyo was no fans. I mean, Paris, it's gonna be awesome. When you talk about, the decision to go to 65 and not cutting as much, I stumbled upon an old podcast you did with Ben Askren, and you guys were talking about when you were a freshman at Apple Valley, you sucked down from like 130 to 103. So, dude, you've been 130 since like you're 13 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy looking back at that. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, granted, as an 8th grader, I was very chunky, very, very, very thick. Like I shouldn't have been 130. I was a pudgy middle schooler, like big old love handles, like my mom, not good, not good. So it was a different 130, obviously, but yeah, I was 130, and that's when. And I don't even like to think, like, even for our college guys, I don't like to think about it as cutting weight, right? It should be you're doing the right things nutritionally and you're leaning your body out to be as competitive as you can at the weight class. The only thing you should really ever be cutting is a little bit of water the days before. Like it shouldn't be like, I know when I was in high school and when I was making 103, I was eating like I don't know if you know what power bars are, but like two power bars, 2 apples, and like 2 bottles of water. And that was it for the day.
That wasn't your lunch? That was your whole day?
That was my whole day. For breakfast, I'd wake up, I'd have an apple. I'd eat a couple power bars throughout a day, another apple for day. Like it was the work. Like, I don't know what, nobody taught you in high school really what you're doing to cut weight. Right. It's like if you want to make the team, you better get to 103. So it was kind of figure it out or don't be on the team. And it's just crazy looking back, like, how you have high schoolers just aren't taught at that level what it should look like. And then I know when I went up, the next couple years, it was like I'd make weight and then I'd have hot Cheetos and an energy drink or something after weigh-ins, and it's like, what are you doing? And so it's crazy, but yeah. And the other thing, right, I was 138 as as a senior in high school, and then I ended up going down to 33 for most of my college career. And I wasn't cutting a ton of weight actually in college. Like I made 133 pretty easy. So if you just do the right things nutritionally for a long period of time, you should walk around, fairly close, just cutting water weight out to where you want to compete at.
But when you were lean and mean at South Dakota State, were you eating more than an apple and a power bar? Are you eating like actual calories, or are you still on that
Yeah.
diet?
Yeah, no, no, that was 1 year. 1 year in high school was a freshman that I had no idea what I was doing. And then I cut a little weight maybe here and there, but the rest of my high school career it wasn't very hard to make weight. And then I get into college, I wrestled 41 as a freshman, and then I decide, hey, and I wrestled 141 and I was pretty much eating however I wanted. Wasn't on a diet. I wasn't really right. Maybe I'd restrict a little bit of calories when I was getting close. But I still had a little bit of love handles at 41. I did okay, but then I committed that year to like, hey, I'm only putting the right things into my body. I didn't necessarily count a ton of calories or macros or anything, but I was just like, I'm gonna eat clean whole foods year round. And so I
Year
did that.
round. So no like
Yeah,
cheat
year
days.
round. I mean, granted, I'd say the times I did cheat would be like I would tell myself, "Hey, you go win this tournament, boom, you can have a pizza," or that would kind of be my reward. Is like, "Hey, go win something, and then you can have a good meal after." But outside of that, I really just dedicated myself to eating clean, doing the right things nutritionally. I made 60 kilos for the junior world team trials, and that was kind of the best I'd wrestled since I'd been in college. And I was like, man, 133 is my weight class.
And before you got there, you had this legendary career at Apple Valley, and this is during the time when there was this program in Illinois, one of my favorite programs, Oak Park River Forest, OPRF.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember those guys?
Oh, I remember. Larry Early and Isaiah White were the two that I would wrestle all the time.
Wow. I didn't know you
Yep.
wrestled Isaiah. I did know you wrestled Larry at the Clash one year. Or maybe
Yep.
was it Clash or Cheesehead? Clash.
So I wrestled Larry probably 8 times.
Oh, really?
Probably wrestled him 8 times or more throughout my high school career. We'd wrestle at Fargo. We'd wrestle at like folk style nationals. We wrestled at the Clash. Like we would wrestle everywhere. And crazy enough, the only time he ever beat me was the very last one at the Clash.
Oh,
And so,
really?
so I beat him every time. First time he ever beat me was the Clash, and that's the last time I got to wrestle him. So that kind of sucked, but
Off the
yeah,
cuff.
we were number one in the country. They were number two in the country, and we wrestled them at the Clash. And that was kind of number one versus number two. And our head coach was kind of like big on like manipulating the lineup and putting guys here and there and whatever. And he was like, "You've always beaten late." Like I weighed in at 132, or no, we switched. So I ended up the second day I weighed in 132 the first day. Second day I weighed in at like 136, whatever, weighed in at 138 so I could bump up to 145. He's like, "Dude, you've never lost to this guy. Like, we're gonna bump you up, and then we think this guy can keep it close with Isaiah White, and then we got this kid who will win it." And like he was all over the place. And I ended up frigging going out there and losing. And luckily, a couple of our little guys had some bonus points, and I came down to the very last match, and we ended up winning the duel in pretty crazy
Wow.
fashion. But I want to say that we started at like 160. So like it came down like me versus Early was one of the big ones, and I ended up losing. So they had a chance. And then whoever our 52 pounder, I think, sealed the deal for us.
Those are the teams with like Kamal Bay,
Yeah.
Isaiah White, and you guys had what you had was Mark Hall and Gabe on those teams too?
Yep. Mark Hall, Gable. We had Manville, I think, that year. Then we had a couple just like Minnesota boys. The Wayward brothers were really, really good. And one was 3-time state champ at the weight right under me. And then, yeah, our teams were really, really good. So my freshman year and senior year, we were number one in the country those 2 years.
And how does it work in Minnesota? Is Apple Valley a public school or a private school?
Public school, but right, that's why we got a lot of heat in Minnesota, because those years we were made up of maybe 5 kids from Apple Valley, and then the rest of the kids were from all over the place. So I mean, I don't know what our coach was doing, but everybody wanted to be at Apple Valley, and he wasn't going to say no. So
In Minnesota, do you have to move in the district, or can you live out of the district and go there?
They all moved in the district. So all the guys that ended up coming moved there, families moved there. And so, yeah, you had to move inside the district.
That's when it gets real, when families are moving wholesale.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
It was
happened a
crazy.
lot. I mean,
Hmm.
everywhere, right? I mean, there was a Bettendorf got really good when I was right after I
Yep.
got out of high school. They were coming on. Now, so were you one of the kids who went to the like Apple Valley middle schools, or did you move in after having like a stellar middle school career?
No, so I was in the Apple Valley system since I was 6 years old.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I was a part of, kind of that grassroots at Apple Valley, came up through it. And yeah, so I was one of the probably 5 or 6 guys on the starting lineup that were born and raised Apple Valley kids.
Wow. That's just crazy. The fact that like some kids are born in the situation. Like, and I know your dad was huge in your life and you guys put in tremendous time, but like you just go in when you're 6 years old and your club is like Apple Valley. that's
Yeah. No,
that's
and
awesome.
it's crazy, and you don't realize that when you're a kid going through it. Like it is crazy just, being, a college coach now and going around the country at all these different high schools and seeing some guys have it really good and other guys have literally nothing, right? You got like it's crazy to me when you go to a high school where they got one superstar, and you're like, how did he get good here?
Right.
Like he's
Right.
got like 5 partners and he's got like the wrestling room's freaking one tiny mat. It's like that's great. That's impressive. Like it made me, it was the other day I was at one and I realized that and I was like, man, I was spoiled. I had freaking 10 amazing partners. I had an amazing wrestling room. Like our coaching staff, looking back on it, was unbelievable. Like we had multiple national champ type guys. We had D2 coach who was 3-time D2 runner up. We had, I don't know if you know Matt Demery, his dad was one of our
Yeah.
coaches. It was stacked. We had one of the guys that has like top 5 most points in Oklahoma State history that was one of our coaches. Like we had so many coaches there, and I just, you don't even think about that when you're going through it. You're just like, it's just normal to you because that's the only thing you know. And then, now it's looking back, it's like, wow, I had it really good. That's why I was, able to do what I was able to do.
Who was like the ringleader of it all? The main guy.
Jim Jackson.
Got it. Is
Jim
he's
Jackson.
still
And
coaching?
so I believe he's at a smaller school in Minnesota. So he stepped down my junior year, and he took a couple years off of coach, and then he went back to Shakopee, Minnesota, and he kind of did the same thing there. Brought a bunch of guys in. They won a couple state titles, and then he stepped down there too, and got
Okay.
out of it again. And now he must just get the itch to keep getting back in it because now he's somewhere else at a smaller school. But yeah, he does a really good job of creating that environment, bringing people in, bringing a ton of really good coaches in, and when you build it, people just naturally want to show up there. So he does an amazing job.
Yeah. Well,
He wasn't.
it's fun building something, like
Mhm.
taking something from nothing to something has got to be a lot of fun.
Yep. And I give him a lot of credit because he was a guy who he was very good at recognizing his weak points and his strengths. And I don't think he ever showed any technique in the room. I don't think he ever was, Matt side screaming certain things. Like he brought in people that he knew was really good at doing that. He knew his strengths was kind of running a business, right? He was kind of the CEO type guy. He knew where to put people, how to put people in place. And then his other thing that he like I said, he was really good at was kind of just finding the right matchups and duels and moving guys around. But he did a good job of, if I'm not good at something, I'm going to find somebody that is. I'm not going to try to do everything, right? And I think that's a huge part of success as a team.
Yeah. No, especially when you're kind of program building like that, putting the right people in place, that's key. And I think a lot of wrestling coaches, as they move up through the ranks, I wonder how difficult that is to do or not to. I think about like it's kind of weird because you're a coach, but I'm talking to you as a wrestling fan. But like you think about like a
Yeah.
Kevin Dresser, right? Like he seems like
Yeah.
that to me. Like I don't know how much he's in there, and he
Yeah.
did that in Virginia, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of approaches, man. And when you look at your high school career, 3-time state champ, 3-time Fargo champ, what was your turning point? Like, was that eighth grade year when you were cutting in 103? Did you have a big turning point that year? When did it happen for you?
So I would say like confidence wise and realizing like, hey, I can do this was so after I got third as a freshman. I lost to Tommy Thorne in the semis, and finally I was like, man, I could eat again. So I put on some weight, and then I ended up wrestling 112 at Fargo, and I was in an absolutely loaded bracket. And if I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, I didn't. I was hoping maybe I could sneak in and be an All-American like that. That was kind of the goal. That I don't even know if I really believed that. But I wrestled Greco and freestyle, and I was never a big Greco guy, but it was like, all right, well, Greco, just freaking go try things, leave it out there. And I go out in Greco, and I beat like a really good kid, like a kid who was top 5 in the country, was supposed to be really good. I think threw him in a headlock at the end or something. And for whatever reason, that kind of was like going into freestyle. I was like, I just beat that dude. And I was on his side again. I was like, I could beat him again. Right. Like I was feeling kind of like, what separates you? Like you just beat, I know it's a different style, but you just did that. Like, let's go try to do this. And, it was, I lost actually. So this is back when you could lose matches and still win the tournament. And so I had guys like, I know Joey McKenna was on my side. Barlow McGee was the kid who was really good at the time.
Rock Island, Illinois, baby. Rock Island, Illinois.
Yeah, he was a monster, man. He was a monster. Josh Elber, he was in there, but just loaded from top to bottom on my side of the bracket. And I kind of just got on a run, and I had a crazy one. I lose to McKenna, and that's where I kind of put my head down, and I had to buy the next round. And my coach was like, come on, we got to get this. You're still in great spot to be an All-American. I think I had to still win 2 or 3 more. And I go watch, and Barlow McGee takes out McKenna in a crazy match. And McKenna, so here's kind of the twist to it. McKenna doesn't score a single point on Barlow. So when you look back at like kind of how if you're in a round robin of it, right now McKenna's gonna have the least points regardless. So I go out there, I win a really close one to Elber, and that kind of knocks him into the 7th and 8th. And now it's me, McKenna, and Barlow are in the final round robin piece of the bracket. And I got to wrestle Barlow, and crazy 3-period. Actually, I'm pretty sure he texted me the first period. And then this is back when it's 3-period. You just got to win 2 out of 3. And I think I snuck out like a close one. And however it lied, I had equal points to Barlow, but since I beat him head to head, I went to the finals. Barlow went for 3rd. McKenna went for 5th. And but that was the tournament that kind of changed a lot for me, like mentally, like, man, I could do this. And I could be, one of the best guys in the country.
Dude, how fast was Barlow, man?
He was quick, man. His double leg. So he texted me that same year at Folk Style Nationals, or almost texted me.
And he was so strong, man. Like strong. Yeah, no, that's funny. I haven't heard that name in a while, and he was I wouldn't say a friend, but like a good acquaintance, man. I really enjoyed watching him. His dad was so nice.
Yeah, their family's amazing. I always loved running in and talking to him and his dad. So
yeah, he was one of the dads you'd watch in the corner, and he literally would be on all fours, like barking sometimes.
They were amazing. Yeah, he was a beast, man. He could wrestle.
Wow.
Strong, quick.
Yeah. So it's interesting that going into the tournament, you said you didn't know if you even thought you could All-American, let alone win it. So like, if you have that mindset going in, how are you still able to pull it together and not have like self-doubt or like any fear when you're wrestling these guys?
And so there's kind of another huge piece of it, kind of was the making the weight part. So yeah, I went up to 112, but that was still extremely hard for me. And I actually wrestled Greco, made 112. And right after I made weight, I kind of talked to the coaches like, hey, I can't make 112 for freestyle. Like I'm not, and they told me, okay, that's fine. And so I wrestled Greco. There's like a 1.5 day gap between Greco and freestyle. I wrestled Greco, and they come back and they're like, hey, we just realized that we only had, like, somehow with the qualifications and spot we had, they were like, dude, you got to make 112 or you can't wrestle. And by this time I had eaten like crazy, ate and drank. And I remember I had Golden Corral after Greco was over, because I was going 119 and I was like, man, I'm good. And so they tell me, hey, you got to get down to 112 again or you're not going to be able to wrestle freestyle. And so I'm like freaking out. I'm probably like 10, 15 pounds over with a day and a half to go. And
Were you,
I
were you
had no
definitely
choice.
10 over? Were you definitely double digits?
It was right around double digits at least. Yeah, for sure. And
Wow.
so it's funny. My buddy was, so the kid from Apple Valley, Malu Wayware, he was at the weight under me, was also at Fargo, and he had planned on doing the same thing. So we're kind of in the same boat. Like we had talked about it after Greco. Malu was going to go 112. I was going to go 119. All was good. And then they were like, we screwed up. Like how the qualifications work. So we're both in the same boat. And at our hotel, I'll never forget this. We threw on friggin' plastics, and it's 110 degrees outside. And there was this famous day, it was right by our hotel, and we just ran around it for as long as we could till we were about to fall over, and just ran around it. And we were up like that first run. We maybe got 4 or 5 off, and then we take a break, and then we freaking get out there. And by the time we were like 4 or 5 over, like it felt like weight was not coming off. And this is just, I still have, like, if I think about it, it was the worst time of my life. I remember then after that, we got on the treadmill, and then we made the sauna in the bathroom, and we're
Oh,
sitting there. Our coaches like at the point, like, get in there trying to shut the door on us. And we're like, can we just have a little couple ice cubes, and like wanting to cry. And I was 100% sure I wasn't making weight. I don't know how I got through that. Like, we did not get to sleep that night.
seriously.
Like,
You were
we did
up
not get to
working out?
sleep. We were up all night trying to make weight. And it was just like, we do it, we get some weight off, and then we'd sit there and lay down for an hour and try to get ready to do it again. And it was miserable. And I remember that next day just like thinking, like, as I got going, like, I did not do all of that to lose. Like, there's no way I went through what I just went through to go out there and get my butt kicked. And so I had that running through my mind all day long. Like, dude, you just were up all night losing weight. Do it. Like, you can't lose. And that was kind of what was going through my head. I know nobody else did what I had to do last night. I did, and I convinced myself that I deserved to win. And my Greco results, it was like, I know I can beat these guys. I went through that. Like,
Did you all
I got to
American?
get this done. Nope. I lost to McKenna, and then I lost to James Flint from Florida, and they got first and third in Greco. So it was the two. So our
Damn.
side was loaded. Our side was loaded. Like, all the guys on our side in Greco beat the other sides in the like crossover matches. But yeah, so I lost a close one to James Flint. McKenna kind of beat me up a little bit in Greco. But I beat some good guys along the way, so I was like, I could do this. And
I
yeah.
feel like wrestling Greco really, like for your first time at Fargo, really just kind of takes the pressure off of the freestyle, right? You've had some matches, you've been in the Fargo Dome. Like my first year out, I only did freestyle. I remember I wrestled 103 as a freshman. I cut down to 98 for Fargo, and I hit a growth spurt. So I was like going from like 114 out of 98. We get there, and like all the Greco guys, they're like you said, they're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
They had such a better perspective on the tournament because of already being in there. Like I couldn't
Mhm.
agree more with doing Greco, at least the first couple years.
Yeah, it's like you got the lay of the land. You know what it's gonna be like. It's just the familiarity of it, instead of just walking into the unknown. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that always helps. I mean, I think you see that at the national tournament, right? Once you wrestled one national tournament, the next one's a little bit easier just because you know what you're walking into. Like, first time walking into NCAAs with 20,000 fans or whatever it is, it's a little bit overwhelming regardless. And so I
Yeah.
think any familiarity you can get with a place or a tournament is great.
Now, when you get to your first stop in college, how long were you at Iowa before you would say like you were kind of diverging off the path of what you would want to be as a college athlete?
Yeah, and
Right
so I
away?
was I was there pretty much my whole freshman year. And it was literally, yeah, the night after the guys went to nationals that I had gotten in trouble there, and that's when things went downhill pretty quick. But I was there my entire freshman campaign, wrestled that whole year, and so I was around.
Doing the right things or kind of like living like the double life of like doing the right things but also having fun?
Crazy enough, I was actually doing like the first time I drank in college was the night that I got in trouble. So that was the first time I drank in college. And granted, they won the downhill spiral January, February time. I got injured pretty bad. It was a very weird injury, but I chipped a bone in my knee and my ankle at the same time. And so I had this big cast on my leg, and I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't,
Mhm.
I couldn't lift. There's nothing I could do. And so I still wasn't drinking, but I started hanging around the people that were. I started, being around some parties, being around probably some wrong influences, people that didn't have the same goals, people, that weren't athletes. And that's when it started kind of tumbling in. And when somebody hasn't really drank, and I drank a little in high school and got some, in high school, but I hadn't in college. And when you haven't drank in a long time and then you drink for the first time, right, it can get pretty bad. And yeah, so that night I got in trouble was the first time I drank at the University of Iowa.
It's crazy how influential the people you hang around are. Like when I've been at the company I'm at now for 5 years. I went to a startup for a year, wasn't having the success right away, and all of a sudden you start talking to the other reps who aren't having success, and then you're bitching about the same things. Whereas the people who are doing the right things, they're looking at the same thing but a different way. It's like, and when I left my exit interview, one of the sales leaders like, yeah, you just start talking to the wrong people, and I'm like, oh, it's so true. And like it
Yeah.
only takes it. You don't even notice it's happening sometimes.
100%. It's so true in anything, the culture, right? The culture, and you need to find the people that are like-minded and have that same culture as you, right? You don't have to maybe think the exact same as everybody, but that positivity and the same similar goals, and you guys are all striving for something. But right, negativity can sap you, or people doing the wrong things, it can change you quick, right? For the good or the better, depending on who you choose to put in your life and spend your time with.
So in that first semester when you were going, were you wrestling that with like Clark and Ramos, or who were your guys?
Yeah, Gilman, Clark, Ramos, Josh Cheba, Brent Metcalf. Like it was loaded. And like in my mind, I was trying to be the starter still that whole year. Like I was wrestling off the 141 pounder, Josh Cheba. He was probably 10th in the country at the time. And I remember we did like a best of 3 series. He beat me 2 matches. I beat him in one of them. But like I went in there with like, I'm gonna be the guy. Like I'm gonna go as a true freshman. And obviously things didn't work out, but I had made a lot of jumps in my wrestling. That was the first time I'd been on a real strength program, so I was finally getting some strength and size on. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a great situation.
And because coming from a really good program, you're wrestling high level guys in high school. Were you going pretty even right away, or did you have some struggles in like your first, the September, the August, the November of your first year there?
I had some success pretty early on, like not like beating the guys right away, but I was getting takedowns right when I got there, and making it tough on them. And like you said, right, it reminded me of Apple Valley, because as a freshman, I was probably one of the worst guys in the room at Apple Valley. Like everybody was a state champ, and it was like you're a 103 pounder, so I'm getting beat on by everybody, but figuring it out, right? Little takedowns here, and that was always, I think, one of my strengths or superpowers in high school was like I didn't care, I was used to getting beat up. And so I would call it a win if I just took down the 120-pound state champ that day. And I would talk a little bit like, dude, you just got took down by a 103 pounder. You should beat me, but I freaking, and I'd always be like that. And so for me, it was like, hey, this is just another obstacle, right? Another food chain you got to work your way up of. And so that was my mindset going in. And right, I didn't beat up anybody. Or I mean, I probably got beat up a little bit right when I got there, but it wasn't like that hope. I see how some freshmen, it's like it was more like, all right, now I got to rise to the challenge type. And so by mid year, I was in there scrapping with those guys.
I didn't see. That's cool that you were full into it. I didn't remember exactly when everything happened, but so you're there a full year after everything happens, and you're looking for a new home. I heard that you really couldn't find anywhere, and so you end up working at Target. What
Yep.
ha- what happens next?
Yeah. So after I get in trouble, right, all that kind of pans out. I go to jail and get kicked off the team. And at first, I mean, I just assumed like nobody's gonna want you to wrestle again. Like that was kind of my assumption. But with that being said, I took some time and I was like, oh, I'll see, you know, if anybody's interested. And I basically had committed to Minnesota. Like after this all happened, I eventually got in contact with them and I was like, hey, I'm in. Like I want to be close to home. I want to be close to my family. Like I screwed up. And they were like, you know, yeah, let's get this done. Yada
Was Jay still
yada.
there?
Jay Robinson was still there. And
Okay.
so I think it's done do deal. I've applied to school, like going through the process, and then one day one of the coaches, I want to say might have been Becker. Yeah, I think Luke Becker called me. He's like, hey, our AD is not gonna let you come here and wrestle. And so I was like, all right. And like I said, I just planned on that. Like that was kind of, you know, I got in trouble. I moved home. Like let's get this done. And I didn't even talk to any other schools really. And that was just I thought it was gonna happen.
So is
And
this
so
like
that
summertime? Like, so that happened in March. Is this like summer after or like a year
yeah,
and a
probably
half after?
early
Okay.
summertime probably. Yeah, probably June-ish time, I would guess. So yeah, it's summertime, and then after that, the only other place that really would even have there was a couple really small schools that were like farther away, but like a big piece of it was like I wanted to be a little bit closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
So another school I had gone through and talked to a lot was UNI as well. And then it was same thing. I basically almost committed there, and then it was kind of similar, not the same. They kind of convinced, or they were trying to tell me like, hey, you're not allowed to wrestle, but if you come to school here eventually and things sort themselves out in court, you know, maybe you can get on the team. And it was like, man, I'm not gonna do that. And yeah, I'd basically given up. I remember I was, you know, really thinking I was just gonna go to community college, and work and try to, you know, live a kind of normal life without wrestling. And yeah, I started selling phones at Target. I really packed on the pounds. I got up to 170 pounds. Just chunky. Like I was eating friggin' the Target. They had like a little Chipotle right next door. So I was eating Chipotle. I'd be going to Applebee's for dinner every day. Like bad. I was down and out. And I remember as I'm going through this, like I know my family's worried about me and they're kind of been trying to push me to like, I know this isn't what you want, like keep trying. And one day my aunt kind of just came into my work out of the blue and she kind of just sat me down and she's like, what are you doing? Like I know you love wrestling, and kind of just like asked me like, do you love wrestling? I was like, yeah, of course I love wrestling. She's like, then have you put your absolute best foot forward to try to keep wrestling? And I was like, I mean, I tried with, you know, Minnesota, UNI, and I got turned down. And she's like, I think there's a whole lot more schools out there. And she kind of asked, you know, are you okay going D2, D3? Do you want like I was like, my goal's always been to be a Division I national champ. Like, I don't know if I could do that, but I don't have a problem with that. But, you know, I really like want to chase down that goal. So whatever reason, she kind of talked some sense into me and she was like, hey, I'm going to get the contact of every D1 coach that's in the, you know, close enough that you'd be okay going there. And we're going to send them an email today. Like we're getting this done and we're going to see if there's any opportunity for you. And so she starts compiling this. My family starts getting together and we just start emailing, you know, and seeing if anybody would let me wrestle on their team. And one of the emails I sent was to Bono. And within a couple minutes of me sending that email, I had a response. And he was like, I know your story. I know what's going on. Basically come down to South Dakota State as soon as you can and we can talk. Didn't really say much, but like basically said we had to talk face to face. And within a week of that email, I was on my way to go meet with Coach Bono. And I drive down there and
What are you
he
thinking during the drive down? Are you solo or with your parents or?
so I had a girlfriend at the time that had went with me. But yeah. So we drive down and it's an extremely short visit. Like I don't know if you've seen South Dakota State's wrestling room at that time. Like there was no showing me around this or that, and just basically walked straight up to his office, sat down. He's like, "Here's the deal. I want you to look me in the eye and tell me exactly what happened. Right? I don't want any bull crap." And I looked him in the eye, and I got a pending court case going on. Like I probably shouldn't be telling everybody all these details and stuff, but I went through that night. I told him everything I did, everything that happened, And I looked him in the eye and I said, nothing like that will ever happen again. Like you will have zero problems with me. I'm not going to show up late. I'm not going to, like, I will be perfect. Like, there's not going to be an issue. And he just looked at me and he said, I've already talked to my AD. I've already cleared it. Like, if this is the place you want to be, you could come here, you can wrestle right away. We got no issues with that. And he kind of threw in, like, we wrestle Iowa next year, by the way, and this. And I was like, I walked out of there, I was pretty fired up, but I tried to act like, okay, I'll let you know. And I remember I walked out of there, called both my parents. I was like, I'm going to South Dakota State. Like, this is
Wow.
where I need to be. And so I told both of them. They're like, all right, well, sit on it for the drive home, and then we'll talk when you get home. I sat on it, got home. I'm like, yep, done deal. And so I called them, I want to say that night or next day, and let them know that I'm going to go to South Dakota State.
Had you ever met Bono before that?
Never.
Reader? Or was he not there yet?
He was there, but I never met him either before, so I didn't know any of them really at all.
Was Reader in the meeting?
Nope.
Wow. So it's
Just me
just
and Bono.
one-on-one truth time. And dude, you
Yeah,
gotta, I think I listened to this story. I'm like, your aunt deserves an award. Like, to, like, not only, like, she could have just had that conversation with you and left it
yeah,
on you, but she's like, no, we're going to do it tonight. Like,
yeah.
man, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's because Brad, I was at a point where, like, I'll talk about it all day and these possibilities, but I didn't want to be rejected more. It was like, man, I've already felt the pain of getting told, like I was so set on Minnesota or UNI, like, I can't do that again. Like, it would break me if I kept getting in. And she's like, okay, well, the worst is you get said no, and at least you turned over every stone. And so it was like, all right, why not?
So when Becker called you and told you that the AD was saying no, was it a shock to you, or like, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, because leading up, honestly, it sounded like a done deal. Like, it sounded like it was happening. So I was pretty shocked. But yeah, he said the AD said not happening. And then, crazy enough, I'm pretty sure in the next, like, year or two, there was like a scandal with that specific AD and he got canned.
There
So I
was.
was like,
Yeah.
man.
Crazy.
But
So when
crazy how
you
things.
get down to South Dakota State, what time of year is it?
I get down there probably, I want to say July, August time. I'd have to, I don't know
Okay.
exactly the time, but there was still some summer training to be done.
So
So I
how
got
heavy
out.
did you come in at?
So I hadn't stepped on a scale at all. And I remember this is funny too. So I had just, said I'm a 41 pounder. That's kind of all we'd ever talked about weight. And I hadn't checked my weight. And I go into that first workout and I actually wrestle Bono. And after the workout, he's like, dude, you're not a 41 pounder. What are you talking about? He's like, what do you weigh? I was like, I don't know, probably 50. After practice, he had me step on the scale. I was 168
Holy shit.
after practice. I could have been even more than 170. And he
You
was
were
like,
way more
dude,
than 170, bro. You had to be
no,
like
I had to have been.
174.
I had to have been. And he was like, you better get going. You better get going.
What'd you
But
do? Did you just start going lean from that point on?
yeah, and a lot of it, like, I hadn't been working out at all. I hadn't been doing anything. A lot of it shredded off pretty dang quick when I mean, to be honest, that was something, like, still looking back, like, those preseasons at South Dakota were some of the hardest preseason I have ever been through. Like, we went through the grinder, so it came off pretty easy. It tested me, and yeah, it was tough. And even once I got there and was going through that, I still didn't know if I was built for this whole Division I wrestling thing.
What were you guys doing?
So we would be up at 5:45 a.m. like all preseason. We'd be doing hills, we'd be doing stadiums, we'd be doing 5-mile runs, we'd be hand fighting and doing sprints and then hand fighting, like anything you could imagine. It was freaking like a war zone out there. It was brutal. And I remember, like, for one of my first runs out there. So we went through a hard practice in the wrestling room. After, we'd always do this. It was the Perkins run. We'd run, it's about a mile to Perkins, a mile back. So you go through your workout, and right after, go run to Perkins, come back. And I was not ready for that. I didn't know it was coming, but Bono and Reed were actually gone. So they're like, all right, Perkins run. We had one of the other coaches there. I forget his name right now, but sends us out on the Perkins run, and me and this other kid, for whatever reason, were not having it that day. And so we start this run, and right when you go, there's this huge group of trees. and we were in the back, right? We were late started. We ran, and we actually hid in this
Oh
group of
no.
trees right here. We just sat there, um, waited till everybody's getting back, and we were dummies because we tried to jump out like in the top part of the pack and like act like we fit and like sprint to the finish. And yeah, nobody was having that. Like we got yelled at by everybody on the team, and then the coach that was there like grabbed me and friggin' he's like, all right, I guess I have to run this whole thing with you. And so I had to go all the way there again with it. Well, go there for the first time with him following me the whole way. And
They tell Bono?
I think he found out about that. He was not too happy.
That's a
Not too
tough
happy.
look. That's a tough
That
look.
was that was yeah, 170-pound me feeling sorry for myself. But yeah, I remember.
After
Oh, and Shop was also just getting in town too around the same time, and he helped me a lot through that. Like I remember,
wow.
I don't know what it was, but I was always back of the pack runner. And one day he was just running with me, trying to push me a little bit, and he just kind of convinced me, like, dude, running's 100% mental. Like, are you just mentally this mentally weak? And like kind of just telling me, like, dude, just run faster. It's that easy. And whatever, it kind of flipped a switch, and I went from being one of the worst runners most that year to like kind of from that point on, I was in the front of the pack. And it really, whatever reason, he convinced me that like, hey, it's just that you're being weak minded right now. Like, dude, start running faster.
Bro, isn't it crazy how it's so cliche how mental it is though? Like it's just a
I think
mental
running is
decision.
100%, especially running. I think running is one of the best things you can do for your mentality, like
Mm.
by far. Like at the end of the day, it's 100% here. Like you could tell your body to keep pushing through, right? You could, but yeah, that's like I don't love like running as far as I don't think it's the best thing for getting in wrestling shape. Like people talk about, getting in shape. I don't think running is necessarily a great like prepare. It's good, but not the best thing. Like you got to wrestle to get good at wrestling shape.
Hmm.
But mentally, man, what running can do for you is next level.
And so once you come back, you go through that crazy preseason. You're in the lot. You wrestled that year, right? Or did you train only a whole year?
I wrestled that year. Yep.
So you make the blood round at 141. And then when did you decide to go down to 133?
Um. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I did make the blood round, but that first half of the season was rough. I was like 6-8 to start the year, and
Oh
ended
wow, I
up
didn't
kind of.
realize that. Was some self-doubt creeping in?
Oh yeah, I was this close to quitting halfway through the year. I told my dad I was quitting. And
What
so
happened?
I was 6-8. I just wasn't doing well. One, I was probably bringing my weight down pretty dang fast, like because I had to make weight, so my body probably wasn't set to be 141. But I went to the Iowa State Open, and I lose first or second round to some Iowa kid. So that was a stinger. And then on the backside, I end up getting pinned by a kid who was like a middle of the road JUCO kid. Like he wasn't very good, but I get stuck. And I remember just like they probably were thinking it, but like I could just tell, like looking over at Bonehorn Reader, they're like, what did we just what did we get ourselves into here? And my dad had came out to watch, and he kind of grabbed me after the match. We went and got Subway, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm built for this. Like I don't know if I can do this. And he kind of told me like, man, maybe you can, but you can't quit now. Like let get through this year, and I want you to just get a little better each day and see where it takes you. And I didn't want to. I was really just ready to like I want to be done with it. And he was just like, let's just keep progressing, do your best, have fun, try to enjoy it. You like wrestling, and see where it takes you. And I put my head down and try to just focus on getting a little better each day. And it was still rough for a few weeks, and then I think it was right around Christmas time is where it really kind of shifted for me. I had first semester was rough, and then that second half of the year I kind of went on a really good run, and I think I only lost 4 matches the rest of the year once that second semester hit.
Wow. Did you win the Big 12s?
I lost to Dean Heil in the finals.
Okay.
Yeah,
And two-time
and then
national champ at the time, probably.
yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
So
lost it.
when did you like really get close with Reader and Bono? Like, was it right away, or was there a couple moments later on?
Um, it was kind of, yeah. I mean, I just felt like when I got there, I owed a lot to them,
Hmm.
and that was kind of like a big piece, like that I would do anything for those guys. Like these were the two that gave me a chance at the end of the day, and so I felt that way. And as things kind of progressed and stuff, and we got to start traveling more together and stuff, it just kind of naturally got to be closer and closer with them. And yeah, then it was that summer, I think a big, we got to travel out to the Junior Open when I cut down for the first time to 132, and I got a big win making a world team, which was huge for South Dakota State University at the time that hadn't had much success. They hadn't had an All-American at the Division I level yet, so making a world team and having those guys in the corner, really, really just was a huge,
Wow.
huge thing.
Who'd you beat to make that?
Mitch McKee. It was a
Oh,
pretty. I think Yanni was supposed to be in that bracket. He got sick the day of. Nick Lee was in that bracket. It was loaded. It was loaded. It was a good bracket. But yeah, I ended up, and I had to go through the meat grinder. Mitch pinned me in the finals at like the Junior U.S. Open, so he got to sit out to the finals. I had to wrestle the whole gauntlet that day, and then it was that same day. Then you have to wrestle the best of three. So I'd wrestled like 5 matches. Then I had to go wrestle Mitch, and we had the craziest uh, best of three series. I beat him the first one. He beats me the second one. And then in the third one, I was down 10-2. And I ended up coming back winning like with 5 seconds left on the clock.
bro,
So it was like
what?
one of the craziest series ever. And like, so I had like 8 matches or something crazy that day.
So
So it
at that
was,
point, you're back, man. You've made it to the nationals. You're in the blood round. You've turned yourself around. Then you cut down even further and make a junior world team, which is that's high level. The following year, of all people, you wrestle an Iowa guy in the finals. Is this not the craziest thing that's ever kind of lined up for you?
yeah, it was crazy. It was, I mean, as the year progressed, I saw it could have happened. And like, we actually wrestled Iowa at home versus South Dakota State. So like that whole week, it was kind of being hyped up, like me versus Corey Clark. And right, that the story that week was like Seth Gross redemption, this and that, and like a lot of build up, like prior teammates, etc. And then he had his shoulder issues, so he didn't even end up wrestling. But it was kind of that times a million once NCAA finals come. We kind of like, what are the chances of that? You build up, you wrestle a guy you used to train with, and yeah, it was it was crazy.
When you talk about an absolute legend and Corey Clark, I mean, I was coaching some guys in Iowa at the time, and he's a 4-time state champ. He even put the wood on, like at the time in Illinois, Jared Cortez was like legendary, and he even beat
Yeah,
him at Fargo. And I was like, oh my God.
yeah.
So had you wrestled Clark in matches before, or was that your first actual match?
Just practice, yeah. Just that freshman year, I'd wrestled
Wow.
him in practice. I never wrestled him in a match. He was, I want to say he was always. I was 38. He was probably a little smaller than me for in high school, and then he was 125 his first couple years in college or whatever it was, and then yeah, we both end up at 33. Right, it's crazy because he was 25. I was a 41 pounder.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, we both go down away, both make the national finals, and there we were.
What are you feeling like inside your head, like before the finals, like in the moments before the walkout or like the 20 minutes before the match? Are you feeling pretty good, or what's that emotion like?
I it was a pretty interesting one for me because, like I said, it, I like teched and majored my way into the finals that year. Like I was wrestling the best
Damn.
I'd ever wrestled, and right, I make the finals. I had just beat Cade Brock like 11-2, and this is like I beat Eric Montoya. I majored him like 10-0. I majored Cade Brock. Those two had both beaten Corey like the last 2-3 weeks of the season. And so I was
Wow.
like sitting pretty good, feeling pretty good about myself. And then it was just like I get off the mat. The first thing is, people start bringing up, my time in jail, and people start kind of bringing up the redemption story. And what does it feel like to do this? It wasn't like, hey, you're wrestling well or any of that. And like, so my mind kind of shifted to the wrong place, and it kind of was bringing back all that stuff. And whatever. I don't think I was in the best spot mentally, right? Like I knew what I was capable of. I knew I could beat him, but I was really spending the energy in the wrong way. For honestly looking back, like I probably should have just walked out of a lot of those interviews, like just because I was putting energy into the wrong thing at the time, and you start overthinking, and just I wasn't in the best spot, and that was the first time, like that year I was, in the year I won it, we're probably the best shape I've ever been in my life. Like I felt amazing. I was exhausted 1 minute into my finals match.
Isn't it weird that
Exhausted.
happens, dude? That happens when you're too. I mean,
You're
whether it's
mentally
Gable
drained.
wrestling Owings or anyone, they say that.
It's like I was so mentally drained that it was out. And then after the match, I vividly remember I sprinted off. I went to this back room. I jumped on a bike and I biked for like an hour straight, and I wasn't tired at all. But it was like I went out there and I was just mentally drained, that like I was exhausted a minute in, and I couldn't figure it out, couldn't flip the switch, and he ended up riding me out for the win, and yeah, he got it done. But it was tough. It was tough one to swallow the pill of that one, and yeah.
How much did you think about it? Like, let's say it's like Tuesday after Nationals on Saturday, you get back to South Dakota State. Are you down in the dumps about it for a while, or is it motivating you right away?
Both, kind of both. I mean, I was immediately motivated. Like I said, I was
The
freaking
bike, yeah.
hiking right after, and like it was probably an unhealthy type of motivated. Like now that next year I wanted in the worst way to just dominate everybody I wrestled. And so I had a big chip on my shoulder, which I think I was a little overboard, but
How so?
sometimes you need that. I kind of, I'd say relationship wise outside of wrestling, like I didn't give anybody else time. Like I was doing good in my, I'd go to church, wrestling, school, and that was it. Like nobody else got time. Like I was probably not talking to my family too much. Like that was it. I'm gonna do this, and that was like the only thing on my mind, right? And I think I could have probably still done it and still, been a
Yeah.
little more communicative and better in relationships and stuff at the time. But it was like I was obsessed. I want, like I remember going into that next year is like I literally want to pin everybody I wrestle. Like that was what I was telling people in interviews, and like yeah, that's where I was at. Like I was so like that summer of training, I don't think I've ever gone harder than I did that entire summer.
I love it kind of reminds, when you said that, it just reminded me of like when John Smith redshirted and he was just training all summer, and he went to the Goodwill games and won. And he was like just doing a lot in his own. What was your summer routine like? Like take us through, like you wake up and what were you doing?
Yeah, it was pretty. I mean, I would lift. I was lifting 3 times a week. I was running a lot at the time. Um, then we'd wrestle. I mean, our guys were around all summer. Like we would have one block of time where I think it was like 3-4 weeks off. The guys could go home or whatever. I didn't go home at all. Like that's what I like that year. I didn't go home for Christmas. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving. But I was wrestling 5 days.
What?
I was wrestling 5 days a week or more. And on top of that, like doing technique with guys. Like if guys weren't around, I'd grab AJ Shop. I'd grab Bono, make them wrestle me. Like I was in there nonstop. And yeah, like I take that back. I think I went home early on the 24th and then went back like early on the 25th. And that was like my Christmas break. But I like, and everybody else was like set, like you guys can go home on the 20th, come back the 26th. I was like, no, I'm staying here. Like, this is my time to get ahead. Everybody else in the country is going home for these days. I'm staying here and I'm going to outwork them. And that's kind of the spot I was in at the time. Like, I don't know. It's something I felt I needed to do.
Well, it was cool because that's the year you went up to Wrestle Meredith. You were just in warrior mode that year.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and that's like, that was a big piece of why I did it, is like South Dakota State, we had actually a decent schedule, but I was crushing guys, and I hadn't had anyone who had really pushed me all that much that year. And they're like, let's get you a good match where somebody's gonna push you to your limit, and like then we can figure out how to build off of this. And so that's what we did. I bumped up and I lost that 1 point or close match to Meredith, and kind of even bumped me up like even another level end of the year. Like, it's all right, you need to get better.
Well, it's cool because that was around. I don't know how good South Dakota State was, but there was definitely some momentum for the team at that time, right? Like there was changing, like really big changes taking place.
Yeah, because the year before I was the first All-American, first national finalist. And I think we were maybe like top 20 team. And then we knocked off a couple people in duels, so we were ranked maybe 10 to 15th in the country. And then the cool thing about the duel with Bryce is it was on in the middle of the week. It was a Wednesday. And so there was no other wrestling going on. So everybody in the country was tuning in to watch Wyoming and South Dakota State, two small schools go at it. And so it was cool. You know, it was huge for the program. All eyes finally, you know. I know before I sent an email to Coach Bono, I didn't even know South Dakota State was a Division I team.
Right.
So I didn't even know at that time. And you know, and now, you know, fast forward, now everybody in the wrestling world is watching South Dakota State and Wyoming. So it was a huge
And
thing.
even further, look at their practice facilities now. I mean, like, dude, what that crew that you three did and all your teammates did, and now what Coach Han's taken on it and run with it, it's a wrestling school now. Like that's a legitimate option for guys.
Yep. And that was the best thing about it is that fan base and that community is the wrestling. Like you said, it's a wrestling town. Like they love their wrestling. And so it was, it was amazing. And, you know, and then finally, you know, fast forward, I get it done that year and get to bring home their first national title, Division I in any sport, you know, back to Brookings. So it was amazing.
That's amazing, man. That's a great way to wrap this up. It's been so fun to hear your story, man. It's just, I know there's like another 2 hours of Seth, the international wrestler, Seth, the coach. I want to hear about the recruiting, but man, this has been, it's been so fun to have you on here. The one thing I was going to ask you about, we haven't hit on though, just remind me real quick, what happened in that Tariq Wilson match? Was that at nationals or was that a duel?
That was nationals semifinals the year I won it.
What the heck was happening in that match?
Oh man. So
didn't he take you down like 5 times?
Yep. So, right. You know, that's kind of right. I ended up having back surgery that next year. That's
wow.
kind of, so that's the year I medical. And then I had kind of had some beginning symptoms of like the disc slippage. And so that's what ended up happening when I had the surgery. My disc completely slipped out of place. And so I was having some early symptoms that year. And it was pretty crazy. Like a Big 12. And this is why looking back, like that year, I think I overtrained myself. Kind of like I said, I was a madman. And right, you know, I didn't know when to relax. I was training through the Big 12 tournament to like what do you know? There's a time to taper down and get feeling good. And by the end of the year, there's like you go watch a couple of my matches at Big 12s, but I would get kind of some pain just going down my legs, and I, for whatever reason, could not move my feet very well. And I remember going into that match, like I'm just trying to hype myself up. I'm doing fast feet, like trying to get my feet moving, and they're just like, I don't know if you ever had that feeling. Where like your reaction is just like a second behind everything that's happening. Like I'm drilling and I'm trying to get it going, and like I remember I had this kid named Zeke Andrade with me, like warming me up for my matches, and I was like going live on him, trying to get my feet to work, like trying to push it, and they just wouldn't get going. I was like, man, you got to figure this out. And so I go out there. He takes me down right away. I escape. He takes me down again. I reverse him, luckily, at the end of the period. So it's 4-3. Second period comes around. He defers. And so this was a huge, like, are you going to go down, get your escape, or are you going to go on top and turn this guy? And luckily, I give the thumbs up. I pick the top position. I turn him for 4. So now I'm up 7-4. I lock in my ride time. And then third period, he chooses neutral, ends up taking me down 3 more times in like the last 25 seconds of the match.
Were they hitting you for stalling?
They didn't hit me for stalling because he was just takedown up. And like I was still like I said, I live with guys on my legs, so I was kind of I was pushing into him, but then he'd dive under me. So he takes me down 3 times in like the last 25 seconds to push it into overtime. And
I forgot it went into OT.
Yeah, I think one thing that mentally hurt, like for him, right? All the momentum, the whole crowd's on his side cheering like crazy, like momentum's completely this way. But he thought he won the match in regulation. Like he thought that he had the match
Oh,
winning takedown. Like you could see in the video, he kind of like celebrates, like thinks he won. And then the ref's like, all right, back to the middle, back to the middle. And he dives in kind of on that same single leg that he'd gotten me with a few times. And finally, this time, I get my knee to the mat, and I hit my little belly wizard thing, and I ended up stepping over on the bundle and pinning him in overtime.
I didn't.
And so
Wow,
my first takedown of that match came in overtime.
that's
So
just gutting it out, dude. That's literally
yeah,
just God. That's
yeah,
crazy,
talk about winning ugly, but yeah, got it done.
man. Well, that's a crazy. I just don't remember all the ins and outs of it like that, but I do remember that match just in my head. So I just couldn't remember exactly how it went. But no,
Oh
I
yeah,
I appreciate you, man, going down the memory lane on that. That was fun.
absolutely, absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, sir, Seth. You have a good one, brother. Take care.
Thank you, you too.